kind of want to see how Atlantis ties into this Nephilim-driven techno new age that we're moving into and how it sort of overlaps.
So when you see the mythos of Atlantis, and particularly how it's been presented in our generation, but I think in past generations, it's just that they didn't have quite the understanding of the technology, or that it is presented as a very high-tech civilization. It was the most advanced civilization of its time. It was recognized as the helm of world government and the most cultured of societies. It was the shining empire on a hill, so to speak. It was that advanced with its science and its black magic. And it sort of viewed those as the same type of knowledge. It's just that you have white magic and you have black magic. Right. And they lean heavily towards the end, more towards the dark side. Again, with that sort of analogy of the force, right? The good force and the evil force. It's still all polytheism. So you have to remember that. So not only was it the helm of world government, not only was it the center of technology and culture, but it was the center of its religion sort of for the whole world. I mean, it was sort of as the dominant, highest developed sort of religion. There was other religious centers around the world with the same type of pantheon, but Atlantis was looked at as, this gigantic powerhouse that was the way things ought to be run. So we talked a little bit about Bacon earlier, and we talked a little bit about the English language that Bacon created to be the universal language for the New Atlantis, a book that he wrote, where you have this merging of the science and religion that would operate in the I think it was called it the 6 days of Solomon, as they called it, for this new age. And that you have these 10 demigod kings in this world government that they're trying to impose on the antediluvian world, just as you have 10 kings in Daniel 7 and in Daniel 2 with the 10 toes and the 10 kings that are talked about in Revelation 12, 13, and 17. That's the new Atlantis that they're trying to bring about. So they're trying to catch us up to that technology that they had. And they were, as I say, I mean, we get into like the theosophy versions with Blavatsky and the terms that they talked about Atlantis in, and the level of the magic and the black magic that they got to. It was way beyond anything that we're seeing today. And yet we're trying to catch up to that. Now, you can catch up very, very quickly as this knowledge doubles and doubles in shorter time frames as we go. So it can happen fairly quickly. But yeah, when they're talking about the new Atlantis, we're talking about a time when the gods walked amongst us. We are talking about a time when the bloodline divine offspring, Poseidon had 10 sons through Clyto, a human female, to create these 10 bloodline kings. So we had the demigods walking amongst us, and we had this development of knowledge, and that's the golden age that they want to recreate.
Yeah. Helena Blavatsky, what was it? The sevenfold rays? Is that right? Of the enlightened masters. I'm trying to remember exactly what that was. Help me out, Gary. I'm trying to remember.
You'll have to help me out a little bit more about the 7 rays.
Yeah, the Ascendant Masters. That's
the Ascended Masters, yes.
Yes.
So the Ascended Masters are, then there's several groups that are talked about in this, but the Ascended Masters are demigods that have transcended to the next level. So we understand these as demons, and they're called the Great White Brotherhood. They're called the spirit guides. They're called all sorts of different things in that understanding and in the hierarchy that they're referring to. So these aren't humans and these aren't angels. These are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim and the Rephaim. And these are the ones that are located in Hades. Somehow, some way, they found their way to their heaven, which is Hades. They're not in the sides of the abyss, as they're talked about being locked in Ezekiel 32 for doing terrible things. These are the terrible ones.
That's right.
So when we talk about being in communication with them, they're not providing all of the angelic technology. Otherwise, we'd be there faster, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, so I think what has happened is you had this changing of the rules to a certain degree after the flood of what you can engage upon. And I think it's to allow enough time to fulfill all the names that were written in the book of life from before creation, to sort of, everybody have their chance to make their choices and not have their names erased from the book of life. And so that I don't think the veil comes off of this until we get closer to the end time. So it's a slower ramp up, but we will see a sudden transformation of the world where we're going to walk amongst the gods again. And then they're going to get out all of those angels out of the abyss, out of the pit prison. And then all of them are going to be confined to the earth at the midpoint of the last 7 years, because that's the angelic war. And they're thrown down from heaven. So it's going to be like the new Atlantis. And these 10 kings are going to be either descendants of the giants as bloodlines, or they're going to be new Nephilim or Rephaim that are created, or they're going to be demons that are occupying the bodies of these descendants, or occupying clone bodies, or there's going to be a mix of two, because you've got, iron and clay that aren't mixing together. The iron is part of the metallic dynasty empire, starting with gold of the Rephaim bloodlines after the flood, and the clay is a mixture of men. And in that prophecy in Daniel 2:43, you have the descendants of this metallic dynasty of the last of those 10 kings. They're going to mix their seed and commingle their seed with humankind. There's a distinction here that is going on. And so we need to sort of look at how we're growing closer to the new Atlantis as we progress into the fig tree generation. But again, we ought not to get too far beyond where we are in that fig tree generation. But again, things could really start sort of heating up. But I think that new Atlantis that the polytheists dream about, which is the new age, is just different language of the same sort of term. They want to have that golden age brought back, and they want to have a realm that they win, just as they talk about in so many science fiction movies. Doctor Strange would be the best analogy, where they win a treaty to be on their own on Earth, and the rest of the universe is reigned over by the Dark Lord, which is the God of the Bible in their belief system.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about those Marvel movies, is that they have really, and the DC movies too, I guess, they've really elevated those characters to the status of demigods. And when you look at it through a Christian lens, like it's really like you're watching mythology unfold in front of you as a neo pantheon.
Yes, and the metaverses, Metatron,
right,
Facebook, the multiverse. This is that angelic technology and access and world that they're trying to bring about, and all of those superheroes are based on either ancient technology or the offspring of the gods with human females.
And if you had said that 30 years ago, people would roll their eyes. And think, that's the most ridiculous notion. Nobody thinks that. Come on, it's Captain America.
Yeah.
But now we're actually trying to create super soldiers.
Yeah, you're seeing their theology and what they want in those movies. They're telling you what it's going to look like.
It's not so crazy.
So when we're going to see these things walk amongst us again. It's just a matter of how and what format. But it's going to be like the days of Noah. It may not be quite identical, but it will be like those days of Noah.
Mm-hmm.
And in the days of Noah, which was 600 years before the flood and 350 years after the flood, we had giants in both of those time frames, and there were significant numbers of those giants, and they controlled all of the hierarchy. And except for the terrible ones, the Rephaim ability to reproduce, because there's all these sort of interesting descriptions of giants, but it also says that they were childless and had a fertility issue. And so they had to intermarry with humans to continue. But those are the descendants that are here today. It's just a matter, will they be presenting their own representatives for Antichrist and or these 10 kings, or will there be an addition or a supplementing of those bloodlines? They've been pre-planning this for a while, but they've not been able to bring it about. So they continue to be more frustrated, and they continue to double down. They're eventually going to get there, but it will be the ordained time when they get there. But yeah, all of this is just that sort of development of that transhumanism philosophy, theology, and technology, that we're just starting to see that capability becoming more real. But now they kind of drop those primitive sort of descriptions of where they're going because of the technology that's now available, that they're taking it to a whole different level. So they're still ahead of us on it. They're just leading us in that way. But that's what they do. They lead us away from God.
Yeah.